Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Siti Aisyah binti Mohtar, matrix number of 1170262. In this video, I'm gonna explain about policy, politics, public opinion and challenging on implementing renewable energy as the main energy resource in Iceland and Malaysia.
Iceland, a pioneer in the use of renewable resources.
Iceland has an abundance of clean, renewable energy thanks to its remarkable geography and geology that provides both hydro and geothermal resources. In the 20th century, Icelanders harnessed these natural resources, an important factor in helping transform the population from a poor, coal-reliant society to one currently enjoying very high living standards. Iceland is a leader in geothermal development and exports its technical expertise worldwide. Imported fossil fuels are still used in transport in Iceland, as ships, planes and cars tend to run on conventional energy. Electric vehicle ownership is however growing quickly, in line with the government's policy of reducing the country's reliance on imported fossil fuels. Iceland's energy development. The first hydropower turbine began operating 1904, but widespread electrification of the country did not occur until after the 1940s. Next, the use of geothermal steam to heat houses was first tried in 1908, and successfully executed in 1911. Then, in 1944 electricity was produced for the first time using geothermal power. In 2017, about 81% of total primary energy supply and around 98% of electricity in Iceland was produced from hydro and geothermal. In Iceland, there are three renewable energy that being used which are geothermal, hydro and wind. Here is the map of Iceland. The Icelandic National Renewable Energy Action Plan for the promotion of the use of energy from renewable sources.
This policy document is based upon a report which was presented and discussed in Parliament in beginning of 2012. It is an overall document laying down the government emphasis in energy strategy and energy policy for Iceland for the next years. The aim of the comprehensive energy strategy can be summarized as follows. Having renewable energy sources replace imported energy. Iceland's energy harnessing shall be sustainable for the good of society and the public. A precautionary and protective approach will be followed in hydroelectric and geothermal energy production. The energy strategy will support diversified industry, emphasizing the development of ecologically beneficial high-tech industry. The energy strategy will aim at sustainable utilization, avoiding for instance aggressive utilization of geothermal areas. To encourage better energy utilization, for instance, by developing industrial parks and factories, horticulture stations, recycling and other activities utilizing the steam energy of sustainable geothermal plants. Connection of the Icelandic electricity system to Europe, through an interconnector, shall be examined further. Its policy is to make the fullest use of these resources in a sustainable manner has been successful. Today, nearly all of Iceland's electricity and space heating is provided by renewable sources, which are hydropower and geothermal energy. The transport sector, along with the fisheries, are the only sectors in Iceland which still are dependent on fossil fuels. The transport sector on land is currently 0.35% based on renewables. Therefore, the Icelandic policy and actions are focused on increasing the percentage of renewable energy for transport while maintaining the strong grasp of renewables in electricity and heating sectors. Iceland strives to increase the use of its sustainable energy resources by offering the country as a site for power-intensive industries, thus decreasing the global pollution caused by energy production with fossil fuels. This reflects Iceland's policy of international cooperation for ensuring sustainable use of natural resources, a cornerstone of Iceland's foreign policy. At the same time, Iceland is working on new technologies, which may increase the potential of Iceland's renewable energy resources. Iceland is starting a deep drilling research program to maximize the utilization of geothermal energy. This is the illustration on how the Iceland Deep Drilling Project. Politics of Iceland on implementing renewable energy as the main source of energy. There are three categories on politics part, which are government, export of know-how and imported fossil fuels. What is the role of government? In active countries, like Iceland, the government financed research and exploration projects and engaged in setting up institutions and even companies. This activity accounted for an increased perception of geothermal as a candidate for a prospective energy source. In the mid-1960s, the first agreement was signed with Alu Swiss to build an aluminium smelter powered by hydropower on the island. In 1967, the government installed the Energy Fund, which gave out loans to geothermal exploration projects. The government has provided support by setting up research institutions and projects like the Iceland Deep Drilling Project that attempts to reach supercritical hydrous fluid under the island. Furthermore, the government initiated a resource assessment plan of the country's hydro and geothermal resources to rank the different projects by their economic, environmental and social impacts. Currently, several simultaneous technical strategies are being considered by the Icelandic government, such as use of methane, hydrogen, and biodiesel. The government is considering the best way to facilitate those strategies, both through research support, and through the use of market-based methods, such as tax credits and alleviation of import duties for more environmentally friendly vehicles. Relation with other countries. Iceland and UNEP. For the last decade, Iceland has been working with the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, to spark a similar energy revolution in Eastern Africa. Iceland has done everything from financing exploration projects to training future geothermal engineers. We are a small country, but we try to focus our efforts in certain areas, and this is one of them, said Iceland's Minister of the Environment and Natural Resources. Iceland is an important partner and co-financier of the UNEP African Rift Geothermal Development Facility project. The effort, launched in 2010, is designed to spur geothermal investments in Eritrea, Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Uganda. Between 2012 and 2019, Iceland also helped 7 countries in East Africa develop their expertise in geothermal energy through the Geothermal Exploration Project. Next is export of know-how. Iceland is an active international partner in developing renewable energy. Icelandic emphasis in bilateral development assistance has therefore focused on geothermal energy and cooperation with countries who sit on unexploited geothermal resources. The objective being to assist them to develop their renewable energy resources. For decades, Iceland has been involved in geothermal technical assistance and renewable energy education. Over 1,000 experts from around the world have undertaken geothermal courses in Iceland since 1979, through United Nations geothermal training programs and at higher learning institutions, such as the Iceland School of Energy at Reykjavik University. In addition, several Icelandic companies make it their business to export geothermal and hydropower know-how and experience. Geothermal experts from Iceland are now at work in the United States, China, Indonesia, the Philippines, Germany, Hungary, Djibouti, Eritrea, Nicaragua, and El Salvador. The Icelandic energy industry has participated in geothermal projects in over 50 countries and continues to be highly active worldwide. An example of such involvement is the construction of the world's largest geothermal district heating system in China, which serves over 1 million customers. Imported fossil fuel. The Icelandic economy is heavily reliant on the fishing industry. Marine products represented more than 25% of total exports of goods and services in 2012. The energy profile is unusual as 80% of primary energy supply is from renewable resources, the remaining 20% comes from imported fossil fuels, which are mainly used in transportation and fisheries. The country produces no fossil fuels and hence imports all of its petroleum products. Supply by private companies. Public opinion by citizens and tourists. Geothermal energy has been identified by the international community as playing an important part in the transformation to sustainable energy systems. As well as having relatively low carbon emissions, it is an indigenous resource and hence can contribute to a nation's energy security. Citizens. In fact, until the early 1970s, the largest share of the country's energy consumption was derived from imported fossil fuels. What made this small nation take on this big mission towards renewables? Despite good intentions, it was not the importance of renewables for climate change that led to this development. The drive behind this transition was simple: Iceland could not sustain oil price fluctuations occurring due to a number of crises affecting world energy markets. The beginning of Iceland's renewable developments, both for geothermal and hydropower, can be related to individuals' private efforts. In the early 20th century, some farmers built pipelines from hot springs to their homes for heating. Also, there is a farmer found a way to use the hot water seeping out of the ground to develop a primitive geothermal heating system for his farm. Municipalities gradually built on his success, leading to more systematic exploration of the geothermal resources. Early hydro projects, similar to geothermal, were developed by diligent farmers to provide electricity for their farmhouses, or as a cooperative effort for a few farms. In 1950, 530 such small hydropower plants were built in Iceland, creating scattered independent power systems around the country. Until today, citizens of Iceland using the renewable energy as their main energy sources in daily life. Icelandic companies and consumers currently enjoy the luxury of being able to conduct their business and heat and operate their households mostly without being seriously affected by movements in the global energy market, because the only remaining dependency on fossil fuels is in the transportation sector. This graph shown the Icelandic total energy supply from 1971 to 2014. From the data, we can see the increasing toe of geothermal energy used. Next graph shown that the primary energy used in various countries where geothermal energy is widely used in Iceland, followed by hydro. Compare with other countries. Let's move to the tourist opinion on applying renewable energy in Iceland. Iceland's tourism sector has grown rapidly over the past decades. This success is largely due to the country's environmental assets. Also, the Icelandic energy industry has opened up its doors to all those interested in the development of renewable energy in Iceland, its products, and byproducts. For example, power plants, Blue Lagoon and thermal pool. In Iceland, various high-tech geothermal power plants, as well as hydropower plants, have an open-door policy and offer tours around their facilities, explaining the technical aspects of how they generate power. The Blue Lagoon Geothermal Spa, offering a unique experience based on bathing in the Blue Lagoon geothermal brine, a unique ecocycle where high technology and nature work in perfect harmony in Iceland's extreme environment. Thermal pools. Heating of outdoor swimming pools is among the most important uses of geothermal energy in Iceland. One of the delights of a visit to Iceland is bathing in one of the many thermal pools, filled with geothermally heated water. From this improvement, we can see that the tourists give the positive response towards applying renewable energy as the main source. Issues regarding implementing renewable energy as the main source of energy. Development of large hydropower and geothermal power plants, and related infrastructure such as power lines, pipes, roads can affect sites of exceptional beauty and unique biodiversity. Geothermal power plants, furthermore, discharge wastewater containing chemicals and nutrients, and they emit hydrogen sulfide with the foul odor of rotten eggs. In 2010, In response to repeated complaints from residents, the Environment Ministry tightened the daily H2S concentration limit to 50 micrograms/m3, or 1/3 of the World Health Organization guideline value. If the limit is exceeded, it triggers financial penalties. This has encouraged energy companies to seek new ways to reduce emissions, such as dissolving H2S in condensate water and injecting it back into the reservoir. Next issue is tourism grow environmental pressure. Iceland now hosts 3 times its population in tourists every year, which brings economic benefits, but can result in environmental strains. The country is now facing a trade-off between the development of its energy capacity, the development of tourism and the preservation of its fragile environment. Receiving increasing numbers of tourists during a short season places growing pressures on fragile ecosystems. It also requires the construction of additional accommodation, transport and other infrastructure. The country's electricity output has more than doubled since 2000 to nearly 5 times the amount needed by its population. Thus, Iceland has taken some initiatives to protect vulnerable sites and improve the environmental records of tourist operators, such as the Tourist Site Protection Fund or the Vikin certification system. But as visitor numbers have increased to 1 million per year, which had previously only been projected to occur by 2020, more is needed to ensure that this activity remains sustainable. Next is an energy-intensive industrial structure. In 2011, industry consumed 45% of all energy and 87% of electricity, mostly for aluminium smelting. Power generation is already 5 times the amount needed by the population alone. Iceland is effectively locked into long-term contracts to provide large industrial plants with power at prices below average commercial rates. It is not clear if the rate of return earned by public utilities is sufficient to cover all costs, including environmental costs. Last but not least is climate change. Earth's rising temperatures are causing a shrinkage of Iceland's glaciers, and changing the water runoff from their glaciers at an alarming rate. As the world continues to heat, Iceland will lose the majority of its advantages in energy production. The International Hydropower Association also estimates a very similar glacier deterioration timeline. They predict that by 2080 the flow rate will begin to decrease. Once the glaciers begins to decline, they will be completely gone by the year 2200. Iceland recognizes that within the turn of the century their glaciers will recede tremendously from global warming, and they will lose a substantial amount of their current energy resources. Iceland also recognizes that luckily, geothermal energy will remain relatively unabated by climate change. For that reason, Iceland has revamped their production of geothermal energy over the past decade by making the process cleaner, more efficient, and properly directed toward the people. The only question that remains to be seen is, will it be enough to sustain their population as it continues to expand, whilst simultaneously accommodating a larger industry? By employing advanced and new geothermal factories, Iceland is harnessing the heat of the geothermal reservoirs beneath its surface, and allocating their power directly into bolstering its economy. Additionally, they have drilled deeper than ever before in search of hotter, and more consistent and sustainable geothermal wells. They also have accounted for the environmental effect of carbon emissions from their geothermal facilities by implementing CarbFix, which is a method to trap carbon into stone after processing. The 2 industry professionals that were interviewed think that geothermal and wind energy can cover the deficit created by hydropower. However, there is large amount of pushback to install more wind turbines from the general population. Over 100 scientists from 30 different companies and organizations are currently researching ways to combat the demise of the power industry in Iceland. Lastly, Iceland will soon be experiencing a deep and detrimental loss in their most pivotal resource. If they continue their technological efforts, expanding their innovation, and maintain a completely renewable energy-based society, then they will have pulled off a true miracle. If the current population decides not to act, then the ramifications could be huge for future generations.
Let's continue to part 2 about renewable energy in Malaysia.
Introduction. Malaysia has many renewable energy sources that can be developed, such as solar, wind, biomass, and hydro. However, it is not yet widely developed. The result from one of the analysis regarding renewable energy potential in Malaysia shows that biomass energy generation has the most encouraging potential to be developed in Malaysia. Presently, Malaysia is still very much sustained by fossil fuels as its dominant source of energy. According to the current rising trend of fuel prices, especially crude oil prices in the world market, the Malaysia government comprehended the potential of renewable energy as another option to ensure the sustainability of energy resources. Malaysia First Policy on Renewable Energy is Fifth Fuel 2000, followed by National Biofuel Policy 2006, National Green Technology Policy 2009, and the latest one is National Renewable Energy Policy 2010. Now, let me explain to you one by one about the Malaysia policies. Fifth Fuel Policy 2000. In the 8th Malaysia Plan, 2001 to 2005, RE was announced as the fifth fuel in the energy supply mix. It is to reduce dependency on fossil fuel and to address the rising global concern on climate change. RE is being targeted to be a significant contributor to the country's total electricity supply. The policy had a target of renewable energy providing 5% of electricity generation by 2005, equal to between 500 and 600 megawatt (MW) of installed capacity. With this objective in mind, greater efforts are being undertaken to encourage the utilization of renewable resources, such as biomass, biogas, solar and mini hydro, for energy generation. The policy also has been reinforced by fiscal incentives, such as investment tax allowances and the Small Renewable Energy Program, SREP. It is to encourage the connection of small renewable power generation plants to the national grid. Despite the slow progress, Government of Malaysia, GEM, persevered in the notion to increase the utilization of RE under the 9th Malaysia Plan, 2006 to 2010. It is to enhance the use of RE, especially biomass resources from oil palm, wood, rice husks residue for the purpose of heat and electricity generation. National Biofuel Policy 2006 is launched in support of the Fifth Fuel Policy. It is aimed to reduce the country's dependency on depleting fossil fuels, and promoting the demand for palm oil as a source of RE. 5 key thrusts includes, transport, industry, technologies, export and cleaner environment. The highlights of National Biofuel Policy 2006. First is producing a biodiesel fuel blend of 5% processed palm oil with 95% petroleum diesel. Next, encouraging the use of biofuel by giving incentives for providing biodiesel pumps at fuel stations. Also, establishing industry standard for biodiesel quality under Standards and Industrial Research Institute of Malaysia, SIRIM. Lastly, setting up of a palm oil biodiesel plant. Next, National Green Technology Policy 2009 is launched to promote green technology, GT, as a driver to accelerate the national economy and to promote sustainable development. There are 5 objectives under National Green Technology Policy 2009. The 5 objectives are to reduce the energy usage rate at the same time increasing the economic growth, to facilitate the growth of the GT industry and enhancing its contribution to the national economy, to increase national capability and capacity for innovation in GT development and enhancing Malaysia competitiveness in GT in the global arena, to ensure sustainability development and conserving the environment for future generation, and lastly, to enhance public education and awareness in GT and encouraging its widespread use. Lastly, National Renewable Energy Policy 2010. Malaysia aggressively continues its goal to promote and increase the share of RE in the country's energy mix under the 10th Malaysia Plan, 2011 to 2015. After analyzing the issues which brought upon the previous failures, Malaysia government has launched the National RE Policy 2010. The new energy target to achieve is of 985 megawatts by 2015, contributing to 5.5% of Malaysia's total electricity generation mix. The vision of National RE Policy 2010 is to enhance the utilization of indigenous RE resources to contribute towards national electricity supply security and sustainable socio-economic development. This policy consists of 5 objectives that embody elements of energy, industry and environmental policies, making it convergent in nature. To ensure the objectives of National RE Policy 2010 is met, 5 strategic thrusts had been identified. From the launch of the policy, it is expected that it will bring a positive impact by year 2020. The 5 objectives are to increase RE contribution in the national power generation mix, to facilitate the growth of the RE industry, to ensure reasonable regeneration costs, to conserve the environment for future generation and to enhance awareness on the role and importance of renewable energy. There are 5 strategic thrusts of the National RE Policy 2010. Thrust 1, introduce appropriate regulatory framework. Thrust 2, provide conducive environments for RE businesses. Thrust 3, intensify human capital development. Thrust 4, enhance RE research and development, and lastly Thrust 5, design and implement an RE advocacy program. Politics of Malaysia. In this section, I will explain about the programs and incentives that had been introduced by the government of Malaysia on implementing renewable energy, over the 15 years start from 7th to 9th Malaysian Plan. RM 154 million for 176 projects has been funded by Government of Malaysia for renewable energy research and developments to universities, research institutes and industries focusing on developing technologies to harness energy from biomass, solar, mini hydro, winds and oceans. Efforts such as the government's policies and initiatives are currently undertaken by the government to develop and promote the utilization of renewable energy resources. A year after the introduction of the 5th Fuel Policy, the Small Renewable Energy Power (SREP) program was launched in May 2001 with a target of 350 megawatt of electricity generation from renewable energy, in order to ensure the development during 8th Malaysian Plan. Biomass generation and demonstration, Biogen, project was launched and various incentives were given by the government to realize this target. Then, 2 renewable energy programs was also launched under the 9th Malaysian Plan, namely Malaysia Building Integrated Photovoltaic, MBIP, and Center for Education and Training in Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, CETRI. Several new initiatives anchored upon the Renewable Energy Policy 2010 and action plans such as the introduction of a feed-in tariff, FIT, and 2 acts, Renewable Energy Act 2011, Act 725, and Sustainable Energy Development Authority Act 2011, Act 726, are undertaken. Small Renewable Energy Power, SREP, program. SREP was launched on the 11th of May 2001 to encourage private sectors to invest into small power generation projects using RE such as biomass, biogas, mini hydro, solar and wind energy. The launching of the program is among the steps taken by the government to develop the utilization of RE, 5th fuel, under the fuel diversification policy into the country's energy mix. A target of 350 megawatt of electricity generation from renewable energy as alternatives to fossil fuel was set but has not been achieved. Next is Biomass Power Generation and Demonstration, Biogen, project. Biogen project was then introduced in October 2002 with the ultimate objective to promote and demonstrate biomass and biogas grid-connected power generation projects and to reduce the growth rate of greenhouse gas (GHG) emissions from fossil fuel by utilizing excess oil palm biomass residues. The functions of biogen projects are facilitates development of the grid-connected biomass-fueled small power systems, disseminates awareness information in palm oil industry, provides building and technical assistance in policy formulation and provides financial facility assistance through favorable bank loans and tax exemption among others. Various incentives were given by the government to realize this target, but only 2 renewable energy power plants were commissioned with a total capacity of 12 megawatt. Despite the slow progress, Government of Malaysia add 2 re-programs under the 9th Malaysian Plan. The first program is Malaysia Building Integrated Photovoltaic Technology Application, BIPV. BIPV is a 5-year project, launched in 25th of July 2005 and end in 31st of December 2010. It is to reduce BIPV technology cost in the Malaysian market and to generate widespread BIPV applications by creating a sustainable BIPV market in Malaysia. The BIPV program has been successful in achieving a tremendous increase in solar energy utilization in the country through its Surya 1000 program. In addition, a total of 1,070 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent greenhouse gas emissions have been avoided through the displacement of fossil fuel with the installment of the PV system. Center for Education and Training in Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, CETRI. The prime purpose of CETRI is to increase the level of knowledge and awareness in Malaysia education regarding renewable energy. This project introduced the concept of renewable energy and energy efficiency into the curricular activities in schools and universities. Renewable Energy Act 2011, Act 725. An act to provide for the establishment and implementation of a special tariff system to catalyze the generation of renewable energy and to provide for related matters. Sustainable Energy Development Authority Act 2011, Act 726, is an act to provide for the establishment of the Sustainable Energy Development Authority Malaysia, SEDA, and to provide for its functions and powers and for related matters. The last one is Feed-in Tariff, FIT. What is Feed-in Tariff? It is a mechanism that allows electricity produced from indigenous renewable energy resources to be sold to power utilities at a fixed premium price and for specific duration. It is mandated under the Renewable Energy Act 2011, Act 725. Here are few advantages of FIT. Provides incentives to renewable energy producers as it only pays for electricity produced. Promotes system owner to install good quality and maintain the system and provides fixed revenue stream. Public opinion on implementing renewable energy in Malaysia. The fifth fuel policy implemented to achieve planting up of 500 megawatt of grid-connected renewable energy power has failed miserably because received sluggish response. Based on citizen survey in 2014 about renewable energy, it was hypothesized that knowledge, cost and trust have impact on public intention to use of renewable energy. Most of the respondents believed that the price of renewable energy products was expensive in the Malaysian context. It can be said that the economic ethos of Malaysia is not presently supportive of renewable energy developments. This is also in agreement with another findings which showed the front-end cost for renewable energy technology was comparatively higher in comparison to conventional energy technology in Malaysia. Knowledge. The result of this study show that the knowledge of the public about the renewable energy technologies, policies and programs undertaken by the government is low. Majority of the public does not have knowledge about renewable energy policies. When there is no knowledge about policies, there is no social acceptance for renewable energy, thus there will be no demand for them. Majority of citizens in Peninsular Malaysia thought that the programs and policies which are undertaken by government in related to renewable energy are unsuccessful. 2/3 of people in the survey do not have trust in governmental actors that are responsible for developing re-technologies. A possible explanation for this might be that, in Malaysia, the environment and context in which the renewable energy policy is developed are not supportive. Issues and challenges on implementing renewable energy in Malaysia. Lack of agreement. Lack of knowledge. Technology barriers. Political barriers. Economic and financial barriers. Social barriers. For lack of agreement, there are two examples of disagreements. Disagreement among decision makers over the most effective course of action to find an alternative source of energy to fossil fuel-based energy. Although the government of Malaysia proposed different policies related to renewable energy, it seemed that among government members, there was no unity and consensus over these policies. Poor communication and lack of harmony among different institutes and departments involved in planning and implementing renewable energy. When responsibility for renewable energy policies and planning is divided among the departments, this can result in poor communication and thus a lack of commitment to push forward the renewable energy policy. Lack of knowledge. The absence of knowledge and skill among the professionals and technicians in the renewable energy was considered as a barrier that prevents renewable energy policy in Malaysia from being successful. The lack of awareness by probable users in Malaysia resulted in the lack of demand and marketing for this technology. Without the availability of marketing, the local market for renewable energy was not attractive for the private sector. Thus, there was no intention from the private sector to financially support renewable energy. Technology barriers. The lack of cutting-edge technology. The lack of technical standards is also considered one of the technology-related problems. Political barriers. Developing renewable energy in Malaysia required a fundamental system change, but government failed to play its role in making this necessary change. Weak plans and unrealistic targets in terms of the implementation of RE also an issue that caused the failure of renewable energy policy in Malaysia. For example, setting a 5% target for renewable energy in the 8th Malaysian Plan was unrealistic and so ambitious. Next is, Malaysian government placed priority on one policy in theory, and another in practice. Small environmental R&D, research and development, budget is a sign of the low priority for Malaysian government to develop renewable energy technologies. After announcing the 5-fuel policy and setting the 5% target for renewable energy, it was predicated that the government budget appropriations for environmental R&D would increase, but it turned the opposite situation where in 2002, total R&D expenditure in Malaysia was 0.69% of the GDP, while in 2006, this figure declined to 0.64% of the GDP. Economic and financial barriers. When it is said that renewable energy resources have not developed rapidly because of economic and financial barriers, it is primarily meant that this is happening due to the cost. The current business environment in Malaysia does not support adoption of renewable energy technology and thus it is not commercially viable in Malaysia. The high initial price and lack of suitable support mechanisms mean that renewable energy technology is economically unattractive. Lack of experience and understanding of renewable energy among financial institutions and investors leads to low participation of national financiers and may increase the cost of capital for renewable energy projects with foreign investors and raise the risk for investing in renewable energy projects. It is clear that when applying renewable energy for ordinary users, and subsequently charged high prices, these users find no reasons to use renewable energy. Providing subsidies for fossil fuels was one of the key economic-related barriers to the advancement of renewable energy. As long as fossil fuels are subsidized or that their prices fail to reflect their ecological costs, renewable energy sources will not be commercially feasible. All in all, in terms of economic barriers, The economic ethos of Malaysia was not supportive for renewable energy, especially for providing a balance between costs and benefits. Last but not least is social barriers. Although social acceptance as a part of renewable energy technology implementation has largely been neglected, recently, it has been increasingly recognized as a potential barrier to the achievement of renewable energy targets. In regard to gaining public support for any policy, including renewable energy policy, taking the multicultural factor into account increases the chance of success of gaining such support.
That's all from me. I hope you enjoy and gain the information from my video. Thank you and bye!